back. This is our next episode in this series. Today we're going to be talking about shifting. A few talking points. We're going to jump right in. First one is going to be breaking it down. We're going to break down the shift into little bits and parts, and we're going to do that through the entire video. So the very first thing we want to do when we're thinking about shifting is isolate it to a single movement. So if we're doing, say, a shift from C to D on the A string, if it's from first to third, we want to isolate that shift and break it down to its tiny components. Now to get that broken down shift, that really smooth slide there's a few steps we have to take. Very first thing is just thinking about the shift via interval. That's the whole shift going back and forth. So if I'm shifting up, I'm thinking about shifting up via that major third first. And then my first finger's there anyway. So after I shift up via that third, I let the first finger speak in third position. So, and over time, I gradually smooth that out so it sounds more like. And that's how I build up the shift from there. I think about it as an interval first. The same can be said going backwards. So if you're shifting backwards on down to the first note, think about it as an interval, but this time going backwards. So instead of shifting up, you're shifting down. So each shift is a practice in intervals and shifting back and forth using those intervals. Main number one thing to think about when you're trying to get shifts is to make them smooth and effortless. And how we achieve that is first we work those intervals that we just talked about a minute ago so that we get comfortable shifting using intervals and hearing the intervals and where we need to go. And then we have to train our hand to anticipate it. And what I mean by anticipate is if I'm shifting from a first position to a second position, so from second finger to first finger, like a what you might have noticed in this, what I just did was my first finger kind of slid up underneath my second, which helps smooth out the shift. So while my second finger was leading it up, my first finger was following but on the string. That way the transition from shifting from first to third was as smooth as possible. Now coming down, it's a bit trickier because we can't do it in exact reverse, because if we did, we'd be shifting on the wrong finger. Coming down, it's more like dropping the finger at the correct moment. And what we mean by that is you're coming down, and as soon as you hit that one spot where where that note needs to happen, you drop the second finger. But it has to be really smooth and it has to be at the right moment. What's usually a good judge for me when I'm doing that is as soon as my first finger slides right below where my second finger needs to be, I drop it. But it's a smooth movement. When you distill it down, it's slide back drop. When you're shifting up, let the first finger slide underneath while you're shifting. When you're coming down, as soon as your first finger comes right below where it needs to go, down comes the second finger right away, and it's a smooth motion. It's not a clunk. It's a smooth motion. The more you practice it, the more you consciously think about it being smooth, the better it's going to be. Last talking point here, and this is just more of a word of caution or advice, is try to make your shifts as smooth as possible. You don't want your hand to be jerking around or clunking or hitting all over the violin. For one thing, it's going to look really bad. Secondly, it's going to sound really bad. It's going to sound like you don't know where you're going with it. And the goal is to get all of us to sound like we know what we're doing. So the sooner we can smooth out our shifts, the better. And one of the best ways to go about that is just consciously thinking about it, consciously doing it, and just finding what's the smoothest, best way for you. And this just involves practice. But just going off of the previous talking point where we talked about the fingers coming underneath each other, especially the first finger coming underneath, that'll help a lot with getting your shifts to smooth out going up. Coming down, it's all about timing and then smoothing out the timing with practice and finesse. If you can master the going up, smoothing it out going up, you should be able to apply most of the same techniques coming down. The only difference is that you're replacing a finger instead of coming up. Instead of sliding underneath, you're coming from above. One of my teachers was talking to me once about shifting backwards. I'm using the wrong hand, I apologize about that. But he was talking to me about shifting, and especially shifting backwards. Shifting up I have no problem with. But I had a lot of trouble shifting backwards, and so what he told me was think about when you're shifting from a 1 down to a 2, from third position to first position, so from a D to a C on A string. Kind of think about your second finger sitting above your first, and then when it gets to that certain point that we previously talked about, just replace it. That'll help smooth out a lot of stuff. So you have to have this part of the finger, the very fleshy part on the tip, almost on top of the nail of your first finger. Kind of like that. That's towards the end of your shift, right when you need for it to replace. Up until then, your finger can move to there. So if you're just starting your shift, you don't want your finger right on top because then it's going to tense everything up. You want to build into that. So if you're shifting back, that's what it should look like. Might not have been able to see very well what I just did, but my second finger was on top of my first finger and throughout most of that shift coming down. I just got it over there and then just replaced it when I needed it to. Alright guys, that's the end of our video today. Feel free to leave a comment, let me know what you think, and if you want to hear anything more about shifting or if you have your own ideas and your own thoughts about it, I'm always welcome and open to new things myself. I'm definitely not an entire expert on this. I'm always open and welcome to things. So yeah, feel free to leave a like, hit subscribe, and yeah, check me out on my other social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, all those other things. Links in the description. Yeah, I enjoy these videos, and next video we're going to be talking about how to build up our finger quickness, especially in the left hand, especially if we need to play very fast passages like the beginning of Don Juan. Until then, I've enjoyed this so far, guys, and I'll see you next time.